journaling, it does consume a lot of your time, but it's part of having a growth mindset, because you force yourself to look at what you did well, what you did badly, and how you can improve. When we discuss mindset, I would say that there's two types of mindset, and many would argue that you can either have a fixed mindset or a growth mindset. And so there is a difference between the two. And I believe, and most successful traders will agree, that you need to have a growth mindset, because how can you progress as a trader if you just hold on to certain beliefs? If you just too stubborn to make changes, you're too stubborn in your self-image. So I believe that it's so important to have a growth mindset. The definition of fixed mindset would be something along the lines. So if you have a fixed mindset and think that our ability is innate, then a failure can be unsettling because it makes us doubt how good we are. But in contrast, if we have a growth mindset, then we expect that we can improve our ability and failure. Therefore, it shows us what we need to do and what we need to work on. That's why it's so important. In terms of having a growth mindset, it's so important to, in your trading, for example, when you're trading, you could be recording your trade. You could be recording it as a video, as a screen video, and you can be speaking while you're making that trading plan. You could be recording yourself, and then you can look back at it at the end of every week to see how are you reacting, how you were describing that trade. And this is just part of the tools of being having a growth mindset as a trader.
On that point, it's good that I just mentioned to everyone to be aware of that. This is important. If you can actually record yourself the trade and you face, that will give you a lot of information, because you don't realize that. You just actually do both things at the same time. And obviously recording, and the homework really coming from not to actually to record yourself, is to go back again to the trade and review and analyze what you've been seeing. The way was the point. So it takes time, as I say, to save time. You can actually record yourself when you got time, the market is closed, in the evenings, on whatever, you can record yourself and see what have you say about things. But it takes time at the beginning. Yeah, it takes time at the first steps of your life as a trader. Then later on, you will see that the pattern of the pattern is, for example, one of the main issues for me, end up to actually don't sleep well. If I don't sleep well, I cannot trade well. And all the other issues I have is be related to myself. In my particular case, if I don't sleep well, that's my main problem. I cannot trade well. So, and then I got all the issues coming on top of. But you see, you've been analyzed the questions of how you feel, how you do things from one point to another to understand yourself. It takes time at the first step. Later on, you will see it will be straightforward, because you find the main issue of being a trader, how to actually identify your patterns as yourself.
Yeah, thank you for that, Daniel. So mindsets they're not only beliefs, they orientate our reactions. So, and our tendencies, they are habitual. And the amazing thing about having the power of manipulating our habitual tendencies is that we can introduce new habits. We can replace destructive habits with new ones. And so some of the most common habits as a trader will be to, for example, you might have a losing trade, and then on the next trade, you second guess yourself because you're hesitating. You're hesitating because your last trade was a loser. Therefore, one way to replace that habitual mistake that you keep making is, for example, to have a checklist. And so no matter what happened in the last trade, you will make a decision on this trade, and based on this trade alone. You won't let the previous trade affect you. So you have to try and be very objective. And so this is just one common mistake that many traders will make. But you can introduce certain parameters. For example, if you lose more than 1% in a day, you reduce your risk by X amount, by 50%. That's just one example of having a risk parameters on your equity. So there are ways you can change your mindset, and it all comes down to habits. If you look at your own trading, if you look at all of your issues, focus on, let's say, a handful of them, ones that you can actually change, and write down behaviors that you can replace those. So if you make a certain mistake, obviously you feel a certain way and you react a certain way. Now, what would you like to replace that with? What should you be doing? When you repeat this on a constant basis, when you replace these habits of maybe entering trades too early or following someone else's trading ideas, you know, these sorts of mistakes. And I'm only saying this because I've made these mistakes. And so when you constantly make these mistakes, you just think, right, how can I replace it? So that's one practical way that you can actually improve your trading through habitually reviewing your trading, looking through your journal, looking through your performance, reviewing every trade every single week, and looking at ways and identifying how many mistakes do I keep repeating. Now, how can I replace this? You have to be able to do these sorts of things because your brain is wired to take a loss as a really terrible thing. Your brain doesn't distinguish between it being in danger and taking a loss in a trade. That's just the way we're built. You have to be able to build resilience over time through your habitual thinking. And this is having a growth mindset, new habits, replacing old habits, and constantly making those 1% tweaks. And this is part of having that mindset.
So regarding this comment that Gabriel asked about one of the simplest to have a automaticians or mechanical way of trading, yeah. To give you an idea how I went myself, I went through manual trading to be a totally EA trader, so it means only create my own algorithms, to become a hybrid trader, which means I just call my own EAs to produce signals that tell me when just about I'm going to have a good trade. It's actually was reduce a lot my emotions. Yes, it's actually helping me to identify a particular area. Yes, but on the end, you will face the problem of actually to trade. It will be actually unlikely that you going to have a strategy will be working automatically and will work forever. Maybe last for 3 months, 6 months, 1 year, maybe more. But it's like then we will have problems on that particular trade. And because you trade that, you will see things that you will see losses that you wouldn't have expected like before. Will actually you thinking, okay, yes, I want to be, you will automatically will manually affect the trade that you're going to work on. So on the end, you have to control yourself. Automation mechanical will help you, but is not a solution. It's just a help. You need to be aware of what on the end you will be face again, the same problem again. You're going to face yourself touching the screen, touching the buttons, press the buttons, and do things around. But it's a good start. It's a good start to create mechanical, and that mechanical may produce for you a signal and reduce the number of trades you have and all the steps. But the only way to actually to reduce the issue of making mistakes on the market and to be irrational and don't think irrational is to actually to trade. You need to trade. You need to work in it every single day, but working on yourself, not on the trade. If the trade is not important, I know that we need to trade to make money, but the reality you need to is a bit crazy because you need to talk to yourself. Okay, what am I thinking? Okay, Danny, what are you thinking? And you talk to yourself. You say, what? You're talking to the self. Maybe you go 2 people talking to yourself inside. I don't know how crazy you can be in your head. So it can be have 2 people, 3 people, whatever. You go different way of thinking, different way of personalities. You go inside yourself. You can be bipolar, tripolar, and you can actually have different personalities. And you can need to talk to yourself. Okay, what am I thinking in those cases? Why am I doing this for? And when you know what you're doing for, you don't change it. You have a document for everyone now that I just share with everyone that will help you. That it can be improved, this article. Of course, if you go new ideas how to improve it, that would be great. Just as an idea that actually come up from my head to actually say, okay, how I can actually help you guys to make sure that you're aware of your feelings, to control yourself, to be in control of your mindset and to be aware of them. First, you need to be aware of them. Don't actually hide them. Don't actually the mechanical will try to hide your emotions, which will come up later anyway. So try to actually to be aware of them and try to control them based on talking to them. Say, what am I doing wrong? What is actually happening now? And then pattern of the patterns, as I said before, it's very repetitive, but is you will see that you have multiple mistakes coming from why this is coming and why this and why. And then maybe you find the solution is coming from, like for me, in my case, not sleeping well. That's it. Could be very simple. But for you, what is actually is working for you, what is doesn't work for you. You need to do meditation. I do need to do meditation. Do you need to do other activities that actually to help you to have control and discipline? I'm not only talking about trading. I'm talking about your own daily life. Do you have control in your daily life? Yes or no? If you don't, you will not do the same thing as a trader. If you don't have control in your daily life and you end up to on a very bad day, let's just call it, because you don't actually have a control, you didn't feel there was a good day, because you didn't do what's supposed to be done, not because you make money or not, you actually didn't actually behave as you're supposed to be, and you have a bad day, that is actually what will happen with your training as well. If you do not have control in your life, you will not have control on your trading. And this is talking about Monday to Sunday. Yeah, it's important.
For me, it's really important. It's so crucial for long-term success as a trader to understand exactly how and why you have an edge in the market. You really need to know your edge. And backtesting really helps. Journaling really helps. Because most beginners, you can teach them. They will learn a strategy that has a 70% win rate. But what happens is that with the emotions, the excitement of it all, having too much excitement with a winning streak, and then having depression and anger and all sorts of feelings and emotions when they go for a bad streak, that they would easily, even if it's a 70% positive expectancy on a strategy, if they lose 7 trades in a row, they would forget about that strategy and move on to another strategy. But because they've misinterpreted what probability is, they've misinterpreted long-term, they're so fixated in getting rich now, instead of what Warren Buffett says, what made him successful, what kind of thinking led him successful. And it was because he said, because there's no one willing to get rich slow. And so we need to think about that. Once we know and understand our edge, we got to go through those drawdown periods. We got to keep going. We got to trust our edge. If we've backtested it, we know and we can trust it. That's going to help us with our psychology. That's going to help us think in probabilities. And if we continue to follow the strategy and to follow our edge and just make small tweaks, not major tweaks, the foundations of the essence of the edge is still there, but you can adapt as the markets adapt. Then you will survive the long term. But jumping strategies is having a fixed mindset, because you're fixated on getting rich. You need to be really careful with that and really think about, how can I have a growth mindset?